Hello and welcome back. This is the American Celebrationist. Today, we're going to talk about Traditionis Custodes. Let's get to it. Traditionis Custodes reveals the divide between Vatican II Catholicism and traditional Catholicism. In the eyes of Francis, this divide has become such an issue that he is now restricting the traditional Latin Mass in the new religion of Vatican II. The motu proprio even commands that TLM groups are not to reject the new liturgical reforms. Quote, the Vatican is to determine that these groups do not deny the validity and the legitimacy of the liturgical form dictated by Vatican Council II and the magisterium of the Supreme Pontiffs, end quote. Now, this is astounding, mostly because those who already belong to the indult traditional mass groups do not officially reject the new liturgical changes. The only groups that officially reject the liturgical reforms are the SSPX and Sedevacantists. This is why Traditionis Custodes is so weird. Who is this for? Who in the Novus Ordo religion actively rejects the new Mass? Sure, there may be many SSPX faithful who attend the indult Mass now and still reject the new Mass, but those people are outliers in comparison to the many indult faithful. Indult priests are not going around preaching against the new Mass as a mortally sinful liturgy. The indult priests are probably the most vocal group of clergy who say that one must be obedient to the local ordinary. Which is again why this attack on the traditional Latin Mass is so bizarre, because the TLM laity and priests are not actively, or at least not openly resisting Francis's papacy. The people actively disobeying the Vatican II authorities, besides Sedevacantists and the SSPX, are the liberals pushing various doctrinal and liturgical aberrations. But Francis is actively promoting these liberals to positions of authority. He isn't even acting against the German synodal way, which is promoting sodomy and women priests. Instead, Francis must censure the traditionalists, who are probably his most begrudgingly loyal people. Now, I just want to further point something out. Amongst many indult faithful who regularly attend the indult traditional Mass, they start to get this disdain for the new Mass. They start to realize that they don't like the new Mass. There's something that grows internally. There's this... They're just grossed out, or there's this slight attitude of no longer wanting to go to the new Mass because it's distasteful. There's something they can't put their finger on. Now, this might be the one reason why Francis has condemned the TLM, because it is creating this distaste for the new Mass. It's wanting to replace the liturgical reform of Vatican II. Now, if I were a Vatican II Catholic, I would think this phenomenon would be the weirdest thing ever. Because never before in the history of the Church has a liturgical reform produced a lasting divide between Catholics. Sure, there was Roman laity who would go up against Pope Gregory when he changed the canon or what have you way back in the day, but that never turned into a real schism, and it never turned into a movement to keep the pre-reforms before Pope Gregory the Great. But this distaste of the new Mass is so repugnant in the eyes of the Vatican II authorities that they must restrict the traditional Mass. Now, the Mass that they're restricting is a Mass that has been around since at least the Council of Trent. And, well, technically earlier, but let's just say Council of Trent. They have to restrict that Mass because it is causing, quote-unquote, division amongst these Vatican II Catholics. that this phenomenon of getting rid of a more solemn and ancient rite because it is causing this division is just astounding to me. Because really, it's the new Mass that is causing this reaction, not the traditional Mass. The traditional Mass has been around for a while. It has produced many saints and theologians. But the new Mass, well, my opinion is that it hasn't produced a single saint, but I'll leave the polemics aside on that one. Instead, the new Mass is turning people against it because they realize it lacks the beauty and solemnity of the traditional Mass. Now, I would say objectively it has better prayers and better theology because of the underlying issues of the new Mass that many people don't really know about, but I think it's this reaction against the new Mass when one becomes a traditional Mass goer that shows the evil of the new Mass. And it's something that people should be aware of, that it's not the fault of those who go to the traditional Mass that they have this disdain. No. It's the fault of the new Mass because of its underlying theology. It's repugnant to God, and as a result of those who wish to be faithful to God and His church, your soul will react against this evil rite. Now, there will be people that say that, well, this is a schismatic attitude, and because of that, we must get rid of the traditional Mass. Well, that's ridiculous. There's never been this kind of vitriol. If there's something wrong with a new rite, if it's creating this reaction and people want to go back to the old rite, maybe there's not something wrong with the people with the old attitude, with the traditional attitude, the people who want the traditional rites. Maybe there's something isn't wrong with their attitude, but maybe there's something wrong with the old rite, with the new Mass. Maybe these Vatican II apologists should focus on the problems of the new Mass. That is where the issue lies. It's not with the traditional Mass. The traditional Mass doesn't produce schismatics. It doesn't produce non-Catholics. That's a ridiculous thing to say. That's absurd on the face of it. It's the new Mass. It doesn't breathe the Catholic faith. The traditional Mass breathes the Catholic faith, and because it breathes and gives life to the Catholic faith, it is going to make you hate evil. It is going to make you hate falsehood and love good and truth. That is why these people are turning away from the new Mass, and that's why they have this attitude of disdain and slight hatred, perhaps, of the new Mass. The traditional Mass is the way forward. It is the past, the present, and the future. It cannot be stopped. Not by a false pope. Certainly not by heretics. Certainly not by schismatics, and certainly not by those who claim fidelity to the church. These, I guess you could call them pope splainers, by Novus Ordo conservatives, they can't stop the Catholic faith from resurrecting in the traditional Mass. It's coming, and it will destroy the new Mass. It will destroy modernism. Because the Catholic faith cannot be stopped. May God bless you.